Hi everyone and welcome to this lesson where we will talk about documentation hierarchy in information security. As you have already understood, for all organizations, maintaining security is an essential part of running business. If their security were seriously compromised, many organizations would fail to achieve their goals. The implementation of asset security must first be approached from the perspective of policies, standards, and guidelines. This helps to set the framework, set the tone, and give authority to the work that must follow, because the involvement of senior management is at the heart of this implementation. We then speak of a top-down approach, that is to say that its impetus comes from above and has the support of senior management. The drafting of security policies and other aforementioned documents falls fully within the very exercise of security governance. Also, the establishment of effective security governance will generate significant documentation. In order not to drown in the chaos of this abundant documentation and to maintain consistency, there is a hierarchical organization dedicated to this documentation. Each hierarchical level focuses on a specific type or category of information and questions. We then distinguish in the hierarchy of security documents, policies on the higher level, norms and standards, guidelines, and at the lower level, the procedures. Documents lower in the hierarchy are subordinate to those higher in the hierarchy and must align with them. Let's go deeper, beginning by policies. Security policy is the highest level document that provides an overarching statement of an organization's commitment to information security. It defines the objectives, scope, and high-level principles for protecting information assets. A security policy is a high-level strategic document that provides an overview of the organization's security needs. A security policy can be organizational. In this case, it discusses security issues across all activities within the organization. Every organization should have an organizational security policy. A security policy can be functional, in which case it will be specific to a function or service that has distinct security requirements. Example: backup policy, physical security policy. Finally, a security policy can be specific to an asset. In this case, it describes the treatment and security approved for this asset. In all and for all, compliance with policies are mandatory. There are three main categories of policies: regulatory policy, advisory policy, and informative policy. A regulatory policy addresses compliance issues for any legal framework that may apply to an organization. The legal framework of a regulatory policy can be, for example, the European Law on the Protection of Private Data of European Citizens, GDPR, the HIPAA Law, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, on the protection of health data in the United States. An advisory policy is used to communicate an organization's internal standards for security behaviors to the organization's management and the consequences for security breaches. An information policy is designed to enlighten employees on a specific security topic without any prescriptive actions or requirements. Now let's talk about norms and standards. They define the instructions or methods necessary to achieve the objectives stated in the security policies. Where policies is seen as strategic documents, norms and standards are tactical documents. Norms refer to accepted behaviors, practices, or expectations within the field. They can include commonly recognized principles, ethical guidelines, or recommended practices that promote secure behavior and responsible use of technology. Compliance with norms is often voluntary and driven by individual or organizational commitment to responsible security practices. In some cases, norms can be formalized and enforced through regulations, laws, or contractual agreements, making them obligatory for individuals or organizations to follow. Standards in IT security are documented technical specifications or requirements that provide a framework for implementing and maintaining secure IT systems and processes. Compliance with standards is often mandatory and driven by regulatory bodies, industry regulations, or contractual obligations. Now, guidelines and baselines. Guidelines are recommendations and practical advice to help staff implement the norm or standards. They are intentionally flexible and are designed to be personalized. Compliance with the guidelines is optional. Baselines serve as reference points for standard configurations or security settings. They define the minimum requirements for system configurations, software installations, access controls, and other technical aspects. Baselines are used to establish a consistent starting point for secure system deployment and maintenance. Compliance with baselines is typically mandatory. Procedures are the bottom layer of the documentation hierarchy. These have to be the most detailed and prescriptive of all the documentation. Procedures provide step-by-step instructions that guide staff on exactly how to properly implement specific security controls. Let's go up the hierarchy. If you have to participate in the drafting of a security policy, it is important to know the minimum structure of a good policy. This is what we will see in the next part. So thank you and see you at the next lesson.